we're talking about the roadmap today. There's 27, soon to be 28 buckets of things. And then you grade yourself, you assess yourself as to where you're at in this knowledge of the topic. And so as we're progressing with us, we also discovered that first of all, it's reiterative. You start somewhere, you may have been exposed, you may know nothing about this topic, and then you get into this spiral. You learn more and more about different topics. What we really did is 4 kind of overarching themes to those topics. And when we started developing this roadmap, we didn't really say, oh, you start with number 1 and you end up on number 27 or 28, because it is reiterative. And a lot of you know a lot of things in many areas, some things in others and not so much in others. So it's really, just making sure that you keep improving and gaining more knowledge in all of those topics. But there's really a theme of 4 bigger buckets, and that is the pathway to product market fit, the pathway to business basics, the pathway to funding, and pathway to operations. Don't worry about my crazy slide here in trying to capture that, because the next slide will break it down a little bit. And so a lot of times, of course, when you think you have a problem identified, or if you have a solution, which happens a lot of times with science and technology folks, they have a solution and they think they need to find a problem that they can address. Ideally, for business perspective, you want to have identified a problem and then fit a solution to it. But that's, again, it happens in all different ways. So that is actually why we have that sort of number 1, because that is kind of the first thing. And it's also, we've talked many times about the lean canvas, the business model canvas. There's those different canvases, they're similar yet different, but where they start out with is really, what is the customer problem and what is the solution and what is the value proposition. So when we look at that, if you look at those topics, you really want to first make sure that you're pretty solid in those topics, because if you don't have product market fit, then it doesn't really matter that much that you're building this awesome, that you have marketing materials and you have, all these things, because nobody may want to buy your solution. So those are kind of, again, sales, of course, is at the very end of all of it. And you may need marketing materials in order to get the sales. And that's actually number 28, which isn't on the original map. It will be on the next one. So those are the kind of things that you want to be really good at. Business basics is then, if you have product market fit and you're like, yeah, this is something really good, then you want to do the entity formation. And also you want to make sure that there's a big enough market for the solution and for the problem. So, that's, I've seen so many pitches, and that's really one of the things is like, this market assessment is really hard. And we, next Friday, I'm waiting for the feedback. We should have someone talking about Tim, Sam, and Sam, because it is sometimes difficult because you say, oh, we're developing a drug. That's a $60 gazillion market. Well, you're developing a drug that addresses this and this and this. So now, your market is much smaller. And even I had this idea a couple of years ago, and it was this most amazing idea ever. I was like, oh my gosh, this would solve a problem that I'm having with my parents. And because they don't speak English, but they would visit me, and, it was a little scary. And I thought, oh my gosh, this would be such an amazing solution. And then I realized the market would be 2 people, and those would be my parents, because that's the only one who would be using or needing this solution. So that is where this comes in. And again, I'm not suggesting that, you do it in sequence, but your emphasis is, you want to make sure you have product market fit, and then you can kind of go over to, okay, let me make sure, I can build a business around it. And then the pathway to funding, which is typically the one we hear from all of the companies, because of course you need people you need money to make all this work, but a lot of times you can't get money until you do some of those other steps. And then finally, this pathways to operations is all this other stuff that kind of glues everything together and holds it all together. So this is usually what we send to you. So it's a 3-page PDF. And let me go to the third page first. So each of the buckets has those subtopics. So you go, well, I'm not sure what you mean by financials. Oh, do I have a cap table? Do I have a 3 to 5 year projection for my financial model?
Yeah.
Do I have my valuation settled, right? So you have those subtopics. Sure. And then this PDF has 2 columns in each bucket. So the idea is that you can use it many different ways. One is you can fill it out as the company founder, and then you have your check marks wherever, and then your team members also fill it out, and they may disagree or agree. So you can utilize it really as a good discussion point with your team. You say, oh, Johnny, you think we have our product validated. Well, I think we haven't even started yet. Why is that? Where? And so it's literally, you have your team come together on literally the same page, because it's one piece of paper, one page. We also encourage you to use it with your mentors and the subject matter experts. For example, you may say, where is my marketing collateral? Maybe you say, oh, my marketing collateral is like totally well developed. And then you talk to Susan and she's like, well, I feel like you've been exposed to it, or maybe you're in progress, but I wouldn't say you're well developed. So again, it's this conversation that you can have. So that is really what we like you to use it for. And then in regards to frequency, it's really how often you think it's necessary that you make any major changes. So ideally, from our perspective, we like to see it once a year to be completed from you. We'll start asking you to complete that once a year for us, because what we use it for, which is another utilization, is to do the programming. So this is where we've been working in the back end with which the SurveyMonkey makes it really nice, that we have this information that shows us where are the topics that you are needing to have more exposure and more education around it. So we do have our YouTube channel. And most all of the Noontime Knowledge sessions we record. So if you go, I'm a subscriber, so it's here on my left side. I also subscribe to the Desert Angels YouTube channel. So you can go here and look at the videos that we have. So for example, if you go, oh my gosh, she keeps talking, or they keep talking about this financial forecast, and first of all, I don't really know what it is. But second of all, I don't really want to ask because it seems really important, and I don't want to feel like, I don't really know what it is. So you just watch the video. So, most videos about 20 to 25 minutes. And it is the Noontime Knowledge session that we had. So the
term financial forecast, or you'll hear
performance. Yep, that's Jody talking. So this is part, and all of those topics, so all of the ones that have this blue treatment that you see here are tied to the roadmap. So when you look at the roadmap and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't really know what this means, feel free. And if you're not quite sure, if we have any videos for that, or which one might be corresponding to the different bucket, you can always ask us too, because sometimes the topics, like early stage company valuation obviously is valuation, and intellectual property basic and strategic consideration has to do with intellectual property. One area that a lot of people marked as, they're not quite sure what that is the community involvement. And so we do have a couple of videos on that, but they're not called community involvement, which we may update that also.